I love when ideas come to my mind without much thought. Urase Yatasura and Maison Ikoku were like that, but for Ranma One Half, I had to think a lot. What do I want to draw? I like girls. I wanted to draw a girl. But I also want to draw a manga with a guy as a protagonist from time to time. So I had to change my point of view, and I thought that I could make a guy turn into a girl.
This is a video about Ranma One Half and gender. Ranma One Half is a show that captured me from the first episode. It spoke to my queer experiences in a way few other shows have. And yet, it wasn't written to do that. That quote at the start was from Rumiko Takahashi, the creator of Ranma One Half and a really prolific mangaka besides that. She's created multiple big-name titles, but the one you've most likely heard of is Inuyasha. In that interview, she makes it pretty clear that queerness wasn't on her mind at all when she created Ranma, and you can see that in her writing. When Ranma transforms, he is drawn differently, but that is about the extent of it. Ranma One Half does not talk about queerness. References to the idea that a character could be gay or trans are few and far between, which sometimes can be a mercy, given that they are often either jokes or explicitly queerphobic moments. Ranma One Half isn't alone in this. If you look at other shows that brush up against queer subject matter, you'll find that a lot of them are very juvenile in their approach to it. The same way young boys on a playground gag at the idea of kissing each other to make sure their friends know they aren't gay, the characters in these stories react to their circumstances with revulsion so that we know they aren't some sort of queer. It sucks, which is why, in contrast, I sometimes like that Ranma One Half rarely seems to seriously consider that its audience might interpret its characters as gay or trans. It puts in little effort to debunk the idea that any of these characters might be queer. That doesn't mean the show can't be bigoted. A lot of the humor in it is built on the foundation that Ranma's male suitors do not know that they are actually pursuing a man. It's usually not the main joke, but it is a part of it. And yet, the show can't escape the fact that its premise, a man transforming into a woman, is inherently queer. Ranma One Half can be surprisingly ahead of its time, and has some really interesting things to say about gender if you're willing to look past its flaws. There's a reason it has become such a beloved classic. There is a reason I love this show. But what even is Ranma One Half? Ranma Saotome fell into the magical hot spring of Jusenkyo during his martial arts training in China, and now whenever he is doused in cold water, he transforms into a girl. The only way to transform him back is to douse him in hot water. His father, who also fell into the spring and now transforms into a panda, has arranged for him to marry Akane Tendo and inherit the Tendo dojo. Akane is a tomboy with a passion for martial arts and a short temper. Unfortunately, the two of them don't get along very well. They bicker and banter, but secretly have feelings for each other. You've probably seen this type of romantic comedy before. At its core, Ranma One Half is a very straightforward show. If this is the first you've heard of it, you might envision it as a short comedy series with like 1 or 2 seasons. You would be very wrong. There is a lot of Ranma One Half. 38 volumes of manga, 7 seasons of an original 1989 anime, and 1 season of a Netflix adaptation with a 2nd season that is currently airing. The story begins with an already massive cast and absurd premise, and as the series progresses, the cast only continues to expand, and the show only grows more ridiculous. For this video, I'm going to talk mostly about the first season of the 1989 anime. It was my and many other people's first introduction to the series, and this will let me keep the video mostly spoiler-free for those watching the currently airing Season 2 of the Netflix anime. The first season is also one of my favorite parts of the show. and I want to talk about what it does with gender and Ranma's transformation. But before we talk about Ranma, there's another character we should examine. Akane Tendo, Ranma's fiancée. The reason I want to start with her is because I think the way Ranma's transformations are used for humor make it very easy to dismiss any serious literary analysis of them. But I think that Akane's character especially reveals how the show is way more serious and way more intentional in the way it plays with gender than even those who have seen it may have realized. We are introduced to Akane Tendo with a feat of strength, her breaking a stack of bricks. It's a very masculine opening scene. Then, a moment later, her sister steps in and tells her that she'll never get a boyfriend so long as she behaves like this. Her tomboyishness is a core part of her character, and a common source of jabs by Ranma. Her abrasiveness and penchant for martial arts are what make her so boyish in the eyes of everyone else. Yet, despite that penchant for martial arts, she's never considered for inheriting her father's dojo. Instead, we're told from episode 1 that Ranma Saotome will inherit the dojo. That's why he and his father return from China, and why any of the plot happens in the first place. And that's not because he's the better martial artist. Ranma will usually be the one fighting to save the day as our title character, but Akane is a strong martial artist in her own right. Both of them face off against Kuno in the first 3 episodes, and Akane does just as well, if not better, than Ranma. In episode 2, we learn that part of the reason she claims to hate boys is that she has been accosted by suitors every day at school. And when I say accosted, I mean that very literally. The boys of the school have decided that if they defeat her, she has to date them. So, in true Ranma 1/2 fashion, Akane has to fight dozens of suitors every morning. And every morning, she kicks their asses. If you check out nothing else from the 1989 anime, check out the second episode about 8.5 minutes in. While the Netflix anime usually has the upper hand when it comes to fight scenes, this one is a tour de force in the original 1989 anime, and I'd show it to you here if YouTube would let me. The point of this scene is clearly to show how capable Akane is. Check out Ranma sitting over there, looking impressed. In season 1, it doesn't feel like Ranma is strictly the better martial artist of the two. Even though later seasons push her into the role of damsel in distress and she loses to him in the first episode, at this point it simply feels like she has a bad matchup against him. Akane has a very grounded, power-based style of fighting. Meanwhile, Ranma is more acrobatic, evading her every blow. It's a very clever inversion of the usual dynamic. Akane has the more traditionally masculine style of fighting, while Ranma has the more feminine one. Akane is certainly skilled enough to inherit the dojo. The only reason she doesn't is that she's not a man. Her strength and their comparable feats make this clear. The show may not talk about it much, but it's a pretty key part of the story that Sao Tendo has 3 daughters and intends to marry one of them off in order to have a male heir. If he had a son, if Akane was a boy, there would be no arranged marriage, either with her or any of her sisters. Her tomboyish behavior wouldn't be as scrutinized either. Most of Akane's core conflicts stem from the fact that she is a girl. And Akane herself knows it. When her sister tells her that she'll never get a boyfriend, she yells back, "余計なお世話よ。私はお姉ちゃんと違って男なんて大嫌いなの!" Then Ranma shows up, a boy who, conveniently, isn't a boy. At least not all the time. It's no coincidence that in a world of suitors fighting for her hand, Ranma beats her in the first episode. And it's also really queer that it's a girl who wins her hand. You have seen this type of romance before. It's the typical will they, won't they, where neither character will say how they feel, and their affection for each other is revealed in small moments of tenderness and by saying each other's names softly. Akane! Ranma! But there's something that sets these scenes apart from the romances you've seen. Namely, that they don't have a preference for which body Ranma is in. There are equally tender scenes with Akane and boy-type Ranma as there are with Akane and girl-type Ranma. Noted boy hater Akane might be attracted to Ranma exactly because he's sometimes a girl. This isn't just speculation by me either. In later seasons, there are no shortage of jokes in this exact vein. These jokes acknowledge that there is something queer to their relationship, even if they do so by being lightly homophobic.
Ranma! 何やってんのよ、そんなとこで。せっかくスキーに来たんだからバンバン行かなくっちゃ。とってもそんな気分にはなれねえよ。いじけない。いいじゃない、女のままで。茜だってこの通り全然こだわってないんだからね。そうそう。違うってば。
Ranma isn't the only one that Akane has feelings for, however, and the other character is at the center of my favorite arc from season 1, one that really brings her struggle with gender to the forefront. Dr. Tofu is introduced as early as the second episode of Ranma 1/2. Akane's crush on him is so obvious that even Ranma notices it immediately. She hasn't told anyone about this crush because he already has a crush on her eldest sister, Kasumi. In episode 8, her hair is cut short in an accident during one of Ranma's fights. She is distraught, even though she tries not to show it, and we learn that she grew her hair out after learning about Dr. Tofu's crush. Kasumi is much more feminine than her younger sister, and Akane thought that was why he had a crush on Kasumi and not her. When she next sees Dr. Tofu in episode 9, she asks him if he thinks her hair suits her this way, and he says yes. She cries. It is confirmation that she is boyish, and even though she doesn't mind that, she does want to fall in love. She's afraid that her sister is right, and she will never have a boyfriend. Then, at the end of the episode, still feeling bad that she got hurt because of his fight, Ranma tells her he likes her better with short hair. It makes her smile. It's a reassurance that even if she is boyish, there are people who will love her for that, and so she should be herself. Then she pushes him in the river. This arc is wonderful because it shows Akane's boyishness doesn't come without struggles. It can make her feel terribly insecure even though she tries not to show that. Akane's arc shows us that even though Ranma 1/2 is first and foremost a comedy, it has some serious things to say about gender. Which brings us back to our other protagonist, Ranma, who has a much stranger experience with gender than Akane does. In the same interview from Shonen Sunday that I got that first quote from, Rumiko Takahashi talks about how she created Ranma's character design with gender ambiguity in mind. She chose both his signature ponytail and Chinese-style shirt because they looked natural on both boys and girls. That way, both his forms could dress the same, and Ranma would be recognizable to audiences when he switched. Even to the uninitiated viewer, it's obvious that these two characters are connected, which is something you can't say about other gender-bending anime. This has made the design more iconic and is part of what has helped the show last so long. The gender ambiguity it creates is also an undeniably queer element, whatever the intentions of the author. And this ambiguity extends beyond the design of the character. I say that because Ranma doesn't avoid changing into a girl. In fact, he often does it on purpose. This is surprising for a character who, in the first episode, emphasized the importance of his manhood over his life. So, why does he do it? Well, sometimes it's simply for the sake of convenience. The easiest examples of this are when it's necessary to keep his secret, or when there's a complicated plot to fool an antagonist. But sometimes there are more mundane examples, like going ice skating or getting a milkshake. These are things that he says would be embarrassing for a boy to do, but are fine for a girl. In these scenes, Ranma is transforming into a girl to protect his masculine pride. The contradiction is clever and comical. The fact that Ranma is embarrassed when people see him ice skating poorly as a man, but not as a woman, is very revealing about the ways in which toxic masculinity works. Ranma isn't afraid of failing. He's afraid of being seen as a weak or effeminate man. Or, in other words, being seen as a bit queer. But this is queer, isn't it? I mean, in this scene, Ranma outright says, "I am a girl." And whether or not he really means it, he wants to be perceived as and treated as a girl by others in these scenes. And no, this isn't consistent. Other times, while he is in his girl form, he will insist that he is a manly man and demands everyone act like it. But that too is queer. And convenience doesn't fully explain Ranma's willingness to transform. In the very first episode, while in girl mode, Ranma declares that he is much more attractive than Akane. This isn't the only time he makes the comment either. Time and time again, he reiterates that his body is more appealing than Akane's. These comments are catty and confident in a very unexpected way. This implies that, to some degree, Ranma is proud of his girl form. At the very least, he isn't as embarrassed by his body as you would think. In multiple scenes, it's shown that he's willing to use it just to fluster Yoga. In another iconic scene, Ranma, having just signed up for a gymnastics martial arts fight, do not ask me, as a girl, is asked by the announcer for his name. Much to Akane's alarm, he gives his real name. But surprisingly, everyone seems to think that it's some sort of coincidence. The show plays the moment for comedy rather than any real drama. In scenes like this, it seems like Ranma doesn't even care if people know his secret or not. Early on in the manga, Ranma seems more relieved than anything else when he thinks Kuno has discovered his secret. After all, he thinks that means Kuno will stop pursuing girl Ranma. The show doesn't make a big deal about keeping the secret either. Every time Ranma's transformation is almost revealed, it's treated as a gag. Even when the Tendos first find out about it, Son Tendo is very quick to conclude that it's no big deal. The show never even gives boy-type and girl-type Ranma different names. They are both Ranma. But if his girl form doesn't cause him shame or anxiety, why is he so keen to be rid of it? The answer is the romantic attraction it all too often invites. In all of his romances in the show, Ranma never plays the role of the suitor. Both men and women pursue him relentlessly, never the other way around, attempting to win his love through martial contests. Especially his male suitors, Kuno and Sanzenin, treat him as a prize to be won, a fair maiden with no agency or desire. These are just a few of the ways the show uses Ranma's transformation to make him experience very traditionally feminine problems. All of this paints a picture of Ranma's complicated relationship with manhood. And it doesn't end there. Ranma 1/2 does not depict manhood as positively as other martial arts manga do. While Ranma is constantly told that he should be a man, that's by people trying to get him to do what they want. The funniest example of this is one of his fights with Moose in Season 2, where his opponent tells him to be a man and lose. Ranma's father is the one most often guilty of using this adage. It's very common for Genma to tell Ranma to be a man by doing whatever it is his father wants him to do. Son Tendo isn't any better, and the two shitty fathers often team up to petition their children to do what they say. The lack of a more positive male role model in this show is striking. It's because of his father's treatment that Ranma has so many toxic ideas about masculinity instilled in him, and his transformation provides him with an escape from that. Manhood can often feel impossible to achieve in this show, and that is part of the comedy. If the standard for being a man is not eating sweets or not embarrassing himself, then Ranma would rather be a girl. And the show doesn't look down on him for that. Ranma 1/2 succeeds comedically and thematically because it doesn't treat its protagonist's transformation as something shocking or gross. Comedically, the show never makes a joke of the transformation itself. Instead, it finds humor in the unique situations a character that can go fluidly between male and female can create. It asks us to laugh at how the curse challenges Ranma's toxic ideas of masculinity and changes his relationships with the other characters. Thematically, it allows the audience to consider the questions that Ranma's transformation raises about gender, free from judgment. Because the transformation isn't depicted as unnatural or disgusting or worthy of mockery, it's easy to consider how much Ranma should use it, or how much you would use it. At the end of the manga, spoiler warning by the way, Ranma decides to live with his curse. Ranma's relationship with gender is a bit strange, but the show never makes a big deal about it. That's just how Ranma is. I love Ranma 1/2. There are so few shows that depict such a quintessentially queer character without either sterilizing or mocking them, and even fewer that use that to push a message about how strange and funny gender can be. At its best, Ranma 1/2 shows us a glimpse of what is possible when we stop taking gender so seriously and just do what makes us happy. Unfortunately, it's not always able to do that. Despite my love for it, Ranma 1/2 isn't the representation everyone needs. Now more than ever, we need shows that have unabashed, unambiguous support for queer people, and this isn't that. I wouldn't have to write a video essay justifying my love for it if it were. It has its fair share of homophobic and transphobic moments, and none of its characters are explicitly queer. For all that I've worked to highlight Ranma's queerness in this video, I would hesitate to give him any specific label, and that makes it easy for some people to deny that there is anything queer about him at all. However, I also think that conversations about queerness in media often focus on very literal readings. Queerness is more than labels, and stories are more than their literal text. People are far too quick to dismiss the idea that a story could be queer when they can't stick a label on any of its characters. A lack of explicitly queer characters should be criticized, but it does not mean that a story cannot be pushing queer messages or depicting queer experiences. That's why, for me at least, it's nice to look back at an anime made decades ago and be able to see myself. Even though it's not perfect, the experiences and feelings it depicts resonate with me, even though the author didn't intend for that. Any author, queer or not, can stumble into writing queer stories because queerness is natural and human. We have always been here. We're not going anywhere.